10 early impossible instruments. First, the drowned workshop. The Antikythera Mechanism, lifted in fragments from a Roman-era wreck, carries more than corrosion. X-ray CT exposed gear trains, and in 2024-2025, high-resolution imaging clarified backplate inscriptions, tiny letters mapping eclipse cycles and explicitly linking dials to festival calendars and civic scheduling. Stakes. A portable sky computer resets what ancient means. Action. Bronze teeth encode Babylonian Saros cycles. A lunar phase sphere tracks anomaly. New readings show eclipse prediction paired with timetables for Panhellenic gatherings. Astronomy fused to public life. Impact. Precision machining and algorithmic thinking lived in metal long before clock towers, then vanished with a ship. The why now hook lands because 2024-2025 reads turned rumor into operating manual. Now the map that shouldn't have memory. Early modern charts like the Piri Rise compilation are often drafted into fringe claims. Here's the sober point. Some coastlines on composite portolan maps show long knowledge pipelines, sailors stitching inherited observations into living documents. Stakes. Navigation preserves geometry without textbooks. Action. Pilots exchange bearings, winds, and currents. Scribes reconcile dead reckoning with sky fixes. Impact. Cartographic memory can outlast states, while conjecture without provenance belongs in the discard pile. Stone circles that move the calendar backward. Redating in Britain and Brittany keeps nudging megalithic timelines earlier. Stakes. The engineering conversation starts sooner. Action. Quarries, sea transport, and horizon alignment suggest watching solstices and lunar standstills. Impact. Once monuments become instruments, you're looking at communities modeling cycles across generations. A quiet corrective about out-of-place claims. The signal matters, not the spectacle. Stakes. Credibility keeps the pattern intact. Action. We reject spark plug fossils and iron nails in geodes. No context, no stratigraphy, no case. Impact. With noise filtered, the verified pieces get louder. A lens in the rough. From Nimrud to the Mediterranean, optical quality glass and carved rock crystal hint at simple magnification. Stakes. Seeing closer changes craft and medicine. Action. Artisans grind and polish for beads and inlays. Some pieces reach focal properties that assist engraving or inspection. Impact. Early optics don't equal telescopes, but they do show hands chasing clarity. Early metallurgy outside the expected corridors. Copper axes like Ertzes, Balkan copper cultures, and Anatolian workshops complicate the linear march. Stakes. Smelting isn't a single invention, it's a network. Action. Ore selection, furnace control, and alloy tinkering spread by marriage, trade, and apprenticeship. Impact. Metallurgy blooms as mosaics, not a pipeline. The Nebra disc again, but as instrument. Stakes. Portable instruction for agricultural timing. Action. Gold arcs likely bracket solstitial sunrise and sunset. Repunched holes suggest recalibration. Impact. A community carried a sky in its hands and adjusted it when the heavens and habit disagreed. Tuning the world with rocks. Lithophones from Vietnam's Da Dak to West Africa and Europe turn stones into scales. Stakes. Music measures material. Action. Artisans select slabs for resonance, then tune by thinning. Impact. Acoustics is experiment in the open. Rhythm and pitch become shared knowledge, not mystery. Desert observatories carved in void. Nabta Playa's circle and sightlines on the Saharan fringe echo a pastoral astronomy that predates dynastic Egypt. Stakes. Calendars for herders, not kings. Action. Megaliths note sunrises. Cattle cult deposits accumulate around season markers. Impact. Climate and sky link survival to ceremony. Seed myths that feel like instructions. Flood stories, storehouse gods, and teachings from before aren't evidence of lost continents, they're memory scaffolds. Stakes. After shocks, a culture compresses know-how into parable. Action. Taboo lists, seasonal rites, and founding tales encode when to plant, how to irrigate, where not to build. Impact. Narrative as instrument, portable, resilient, retrievable. Here's the throughline. These 10 aren't miracles, they're manuals. A geared calendar rides a hull, a bronze disc teaches night, stones sing in tune, circles cut the year, humble lenses sharpen hands. Across them all, workshop discipline, long baselines of observation, and communities that turn sky into schedule. The catch is transmission. When guilds break, when corridors choke, when elders vanish, instruments become relics. Which brings us to methods hiding in plain sight. The big machines we still argue about, the maps laid in water and stone. If stone kept time and sailors kept routes, engineers kept blueprints. in walls, canals, and heat. Machines, maps, methods, lost engineering in plain sight. While stone kept time on hillsides, something else was happening inside walls we thought we understood. The Great Pyramid, scanned again in 2024-2025, gave up a narrow north-face corridor, tucked behind its chevrons and reinforced a much larger big void above the Grand Gallery. Not treasure rooms, spaces with function. Engineers argue, construction cavities to reduce load or elements in a deliberate internal architecture. Either way, the takeaway is uncomfortable. This monument is more intricate than our diagrams. Stakes. If solid mass is a layered machine of stone and air, then intent and method hide inside geometry, not only on its skin. Action, muon imaging, and non-destructive testing. Scan pyramids, outlined the corridor. Endoscopes peered into the chevrons. Thermal, ultrasound, and radar cross-checks tightened the models. Parallel work flagged additional air-filled anomalies at Menkora for future muon confirmation. Impact. Complexity re-enters the story. The line between symbolic and structural blurs, and the why now is simple. 2024-2025 instruments removed guesswork. While that argument hums in Giza, high on a Peruvian ridge the Inca solved a different problem. Machu Picchu sits between cloud and sun, a royal estate with terraces that lock slopes, channels that sip rain, and fountains that tear pressure into calm. The site breathes. Stakes. Survival at altitude needs hydrology you don't see in postcards. Action, intake canals intercept mountain springs. Sediment traps settle grit. Carved spillways bleed flood surges down safe paths. Terraces buffer heat and water, creating microclimates. Impact. This is climate control without switches, stone and gradient doing what valves and filters do now. Across Lake Titicaca's basin, Tiwanaku raises a separate headache: tolerances. Sandstone and andesite blocks meet with seams so tight blades hesitate. Cutouts repeat dimensions like templates migrated from a shop floor. Transport remains a puzzle: reed boats, ramps, rollers, but the intimate part is joinery. Stakes. Precision doesn't require steel, it requires standards. Action, modular blocks with keyed recesses distribute load. Right angles replicate across modules, surfaces read like rubbed gauges. Impact. Apprenticeship, not miracle, measurement traveling in hands, not books. Meanwhile, in humid lowlands, LIDAR peeled back leaves and found urban water logic. Maya canal systems, once dismissed as moats or ditches, resolve into networks, reservoirs, causeways, spillways tuned to seasonal extremes. At Angkor's scale, water became policy. At Maya scales, it was algorithm. Stakes, automation before engines. Action, embankments manage head, culverts equalize, sluices meter flow through neighborhoods. Agriculture sinks to predictable pulses, not constant attention. Impact, cities survive by hydrating, flushing, and unflooding themselves on schedule. Omens far from jungles warmed cities with air. The hypocaust didn't just heat baths, it encoded urban thermal design. Raised floors on pilly wall flues, draft control, fuel staging, heat moved as planned. Stakes, climate control is an ancient urban service. Action, furnaces push hot air under floors, smoke climbs behind plaster, vents draw along corridors by pressure differences, maintenance crews sweep soot to keep flows efficient. Impact, HVAC is a lineage, space shaped for physics. Psychological trigger. Once you see the flues, you can't unsee them. Modern buildings still breathe on ancient rhythms. Pause and widen the frame. What connects a pyramid void, mountain channels, Andean tolerances, jungle canals, and Roman flues? Methods carried in guilds and site offices, not abstract theory. The evidence lives in repeated solutions, standardized modules, staged maintenance, overflow paths, access corridors. Even when the texts are silent, the walls are chatty. Now the stakes rise: continuity. Architects in the Nile knew to lighten dead load with internal spaces. Inca engineers used stepped cascades to dissipate energy. Maya managers partitioned landscapes into hydrological cells. Roman planners calibrated draft to occupancy. None of that requires secret civilizations. It demands teams who measure, iterate, and teach. What nobody knew at the time: we'd read their plans with new tools. Muon radiography turns bedrock into faint photographic paper. LIDAR outlines ghost streets. Ground-penetrating radar maps buried channels. Thermal cameras reveal flue lines behind stucco. The story accelerates because method becomes visible. And when methods repeat across continents, we look for convergent needs rather than conspiracies. But there was one problem that haunts every system: transmission. When the guild breaks, by famine, war, migration, the equations go quiet. Machu Picchu kept flowing because caretakers maintained traps and intakes. Abandon the crew and stone will still draw water, but silt will win. Hypocausts work until soot and drafts don't. Pyramids remain precise forever, but the knowledge of why voids sit where they sit can disappear into ritual. So ask the uncomfortable question: if the plans didn't live in blueprints, where did they live? In people, apprenticeships, lineages, itinerant crews, bloodlines as blueprint. When Maya cities decentralized, canal expertise diffused along kin and clan. When Roman towns shrank, bathkeepers' tricks scattered with them. When Andean states fell, stonemasons took standards into villages and churches. You won't always find the schematics. You'll find their echoes in the next thing built. Here's where everything was about to change. The machines we just walked through are the stable ones: water, heat, load. But the same continuity hides in urban layers: cisterns under Istanbul, basilicas under London, planned grids beneath Mexico City. Maps of modern service tunnels trace older veins. If you stand in a subway and feel a draft, you're inside an inheritance. Blueprints didn't live in stone alone. They lived in hands that crossed generations. And some hands learned a harder lesson: how to hide in plain sight when survival demanded silence. 10 urban systems we missed. While hands carried blueprints, cities carried redundancies. Systems stacked so deep that modern streets rest on ancient answers. 10 quick cases, each a door into a larger machine. Angkor first. LIDAR pulled the jungle veil and revealed a hydraulic megacity. Barrays the size of lakes, graded canals, spillways, and check dams pulsing water through neighborhoods. Stakes: you're looking at climate insurance, not ornament. Action: monsoon surges get parked in reservoirs, bled into rice fields, and recirculated by gentle slopes. Sediment traps are placed where turbulence drops. Impact: when the monsoon pattern shifted, the overfit cracked. But the design itself was a citywide algorithm for wet and dry. Cahokia, Mississippi Valley. Beneath St. Louis sprawl, a planned metropolis rises from Earth. Monk's Mound commanding plazas, wood henges marking solstices, causeways coordinating crowds. Stakes: urban choreography without stone. Action: borrow pits turn into retention basins. Palisade footprints hint at zoning. Trade goods map a continental grid. Impact: when you call this prehistoric, you erase civic engineering that scaled in dirt as elegantly as later cities did in brick. London's buried basilica. In the city's financial core, excavations found a Roman civic complex threaded with drains, hypocaust remnants, and street grids that still bully modern property lines. Stakes: infrastructure layers, each era negotiating with the last. Action: Roman foundations become anchors for medieval cellars and modern piles. Lost culverts reappear as persistent wet spots engineers must respect. Impact: planners aren't just designing, they're arguing with ghosts. Under Istanbul, cisterns and tunnels constitute a city stack inheritance. The basilica cistern is the postcard, but hundreds of smaller vaults, aqueduct feeders, and cut stone conduits underwrite Byzantine and Ottoman supply. Stakes: redundancy as survival. Action: gradient-fed lines step over hills. Distribution nodes stage water to pressure neighborhoods. Maintenance galleries lace behind walls. Impact: when a siege comes, the city drinks on schedule because someone decades earlier cut a slope to the right degree. Mexico City hides gridded ancestors. Beneath colonial and modern blocks lie Aztec causeways, Chinampa canals, and earlier foundations tuned to a lake's breathing. Stakes: build on water, inherit the water's memory. Action: raised roads double as dikes. Sluice gates partition flood control. Apartment courtyards echo ancient patios. Impact: when stormwater swells today, it looks for old paths. Urban resilience means reading strata, not just codes. Angled under Madrid and Paris, catacombs, sewers, and quarries demonstrate how extraction turns into service. Stakes: subtraction becomes capacity. Action: stone mines leave galleries later repurposed for conduits and storage. Sewer lines adopt prior voids to save time and avoid surface disruption. Impact: the best route is sometimes the one somebody already cut, centuries before your permit existed. In the Andes, Quito and Cusco thread water down stairs and lanes. Spill stone, curb notches, and corner drains standardize slope into safety. Stakes: microhydrology as urban design. Action: rain leaves roofs into sculpted spouts. Alleys tilt just enough to sweep storm sheets away from thresholds. Channels neck down at corners to accelerate flush and prevent trash jams. Impact: craft masquerading as picturesque is actually code. Beneath Naples, the Greco-Roman tufa world, caverns, wells, Greek cistern grids became a wartime refuge and a maintenance headache. Stakes: generational reuse without manuals. Action: wells get bricked, reopened, then certified. Ventilation shafts become stairwells. Moisture maps maintenance rounds. Impact: an ancient service corps keeps paying dividends and charging fees. Istanbul again, but with traffic. The Theodosian land walls gate alignment still set boulevard vectors, buried milestones underwrite parcel logic. Stakes: Roman alignment outlives empire. Action: when modern tunnels meet old foundations, curves kink to accommodate them. Stations land where space already negotiated. Impact: engineering is negotiation across time. Finally, the invisible maps under modern metros. Athens, Rome, Mexico City, London. Dig a station, uncover a forum, a bath, a temple, a market. Stakes: policy and ethics as engineering constraints. Action: rescue archaeology and civil works co-schedule. Platform boxes shrink or shift to preserve remains. Museums absorb what backhoes almost found. Impact: urban systems aren't just pipes and wires. They're archives that demand respect and time in the budget. Here's the pattern you can feel under your shoes. Cities accrete like shells. Each layer adds a function, cuts a channel, leaves a cavity. Later builders inherit slope, grade, and pressure, even when they don't know the names of the hands that set them. Meanwhile, something quieter persists: maintenance culture. Angkor's spillways, Cahokia's basins, London's drains, Istanbul's cisterns, Mexico City's dikes. None work without caretakers. Break the guild and water claims the low point. Keep the guild and systems survive regime, language, and map. Psychological trigger: continuity beats spectacle. What saves a city is the checklist nobody sees. While we celebrate monuments, the real miracle is service, the boring math beneath ritual and power. And when service becomes story, you get continuity even after collapse. Which is where we go next. Bones, blood, and memory, the lineages that kept the checklists when the capitals fell. Bones, blood, and memory, what DNA actually shows. While cities kept water moving and heat breathing, people kept the plans inside their bodies. Bones carry maps, blood carries footnotes, and in the last decade, genetics turned rumor into roots. Start at altitude where lungs should fail. On the Tibetan plateau, a gene called EPAS1 helps people thrive in thin air. It didn't arise from scratch inside a single valley. It's Denisovan in origin, an inheritance from an archaic cousin that met us somewhere between Siberia and Southeast Asia. Stakes: survival traits can be borrowed. Action: fragments of ancient genomes recovered from a bone in Denisova cave matched stretches in living Tibetans. 2024-2025 genome studies in Nature and Nature Genetics sharpened the selection curve for EPAS1 at high altitude and documented multiple Denisovan introgression events. Impact: adaptation rides on admixture. We has always been plural. Inside Denisova cave itself, sediment and bone tell a crowded story. A child's scrap revealed a mother who was Neanderthal and a father who was Denisovan. Tools, beads, and ornaments sat near layers where different human lineages overlapped. Stakes: coexistence wasn't theory, it was family. Action: tiny pieces yielded whole genome signals. Labs pulled sequences out of dirt, not just bone. 2024-2025 work mapped distinct Denisovan pulses from Siberia to islands Southeast Asia, stacking presence across millennia. Impact: the human tree is a braided river. Branches split and rejoin, carrying useful cargo downstream. Move to the Nile. Ancient Egyptian DNA, retrieved from mummies spanning centuries, shows a population shaped by local ancestry with threads from the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East weaving in and out across eras. Not sudden replacements, gradual flows. Stakes: identity over time looks like a tapestry, not a swap. Action: genome-wide data compared across periods and regions. Affinities to Levantan populations increase in some windows, retract in others, reflecting trade and empire. Impact: culture can change costumes while the neighborhood stays, genetically related to itself. Shift west to the American Southwest. For years we told a collapse story. The ancestral Pueblones disappeared. Genetics says they moved, merged, persisted. DNA markers found in ancient remains echo in modern Pueblo communities. Pottery styles change, kivas empty, but people don't vanish. Stakes: disappearance narratives flatten survival strategies. Action: careful sampling with tribal consent revealed continuity across sites and centuries. Social networks reassembled in river valleys. Impact: resilience often looks like integration. The guild moves, the craft stays. Ghosts appear where ruins don't. Environmental DNA, eDNA, pulled from lake sediments in far northern latitudes, shows human genetic traces in periods with no architecture. Stakes: Presence without buildings is still presence. Action, cores taken from lake beds yielded fragments of human and animal DNA spanning thousands of years. Peaks align with pollen shifts and charcoal layers. Impact, settlement is a spectrum. Mobile lifeways leave clear signatures if you look in the right matrix. Follow the Andes from coast to highland. Genetic links knit maritime fishers, valley farmers, and mountain herders into one exchange web, matching what roads, Kipu accounting, and ceramics hint. Stakes, trade routes double as gene routes. Action, genome studies identify shared segments among communities separated by altitude and ecosystem. Admixture dates correlate with periods of intensified exchange. Impact, infrastructure is biological. Corridors move people and their adaptations, not just goods. Meanwhile, Eurasia overlays another layer. Multiple pulses of Denisovan introgression show up from Siberia to island Southeast Asia, distinct signals likely coming from different Denisovan populations. Stakes. Denisovan isn't one ghost, it's a family of them. Action. Haplotype blocks in modern genomes cluster by geography and look like separate events, one feeding Himalayan adaptation, others shaping immune genes in Oceania. Impact. Evolution is opportunistic. Old neighbors leave parts you keep. This is where storytelling gets risky, and where we hold the line. No, genetics doesn't prove mythic continents. It does prove that our ancestors met more kinds of humans than we imagined and took what worked. It proves that so-called collapses often led to continuity by other means. It proves that identity is layered, flexible, and local. What nobody knew at the time: climate stress selects for behaviors that don't fossilize. Marry out, move valleys, join the in-laws who know the canal, apprentice with an ex-bathkeeper, adopt a seed tolerant to salt. Genes record some of that. 2020's eDNA work even flags human presence where ruins are absent. The rest rides in rule of thumb and ritual. Bloodlines as blueprint now reads literally. A mason's knack can vanish in a generation if sons and daughters scatter. But a high-altitude allele can persist for millennia if it saves lives. In between sits culture, tender, portable, breakable. When the workshop shutters, DNA may carry the adaptation while stories keep the technique alive long enough to seed the next center. There's a caution. DNA tells kinship and selection, not motive. It says who mixed, not why. It shows timing bands, not oaths. So we braid lines, eDNA presence where canals expand, admixture dates where trade booms, selection peaks where climates swing. When multiple lines converge, meaning sharpens. Here's the turn. If people carried plans inside families, biological and social, then erasure seldom means extinction. It means relabeling. The descendants of Nubian kingdoms live in modern Sudanese communities. The heirs of ancestral Puebloan engineers live in today's pueblos. The keepers of highland hydrology still terrace hillsides. The plan survives by changing its name. So what erased monuments while the people remained? The next arc answers with triggers textbooks under play.